The message came in late that night. "Sweetheart, we need to talk about the trip. We've decided to postpone it until next year." I stared at the screen, my heart sinking. Postponed? We'd been planning this for months, our first family vacation in years. I'd rearranged my work hours, carefully saved every dollar, and counted down the days like a child waiting for Christmas. I dialed my mom immediately. She sighed as soon as she picked up. "Alyssa, I know you're upset, but things are just tight right now, we can't swing it." I swallowed, understanding the struggle. I knew how hard things had been financially. I'd even picked up extra shifts at the cafe to help pay for the trip, offering to cover my own airfare, but hearing her say it, as if it was final, like my feelings didn't matter, it stung, deep down. I took a breath. "If it's the cost, maybe we could find a cheaper hotel or shorten the trip." She paused for a beat, and I heard it, the decision was already made. "Alyssa," she said softly, "it's just not the right time. We'll make it happen next year, I promise." A promise, one I should have known not to trust. 2 days later, on my lunch break, I scrolled through Facebook, only to feel my stomach drop. There it was, a photo of my mom and dad on a beach, sun-kissed, drinks in hand, the ocean sparkling behind them. My heart raced as I swiped to see more. My brother Jake and his girlfriend on a boat, my parents dining at a seafood restaurant, smiling over plates of lobster, and the caption, "Family time is priceless." Family time, except I wasn't part of it, because, according to them, the trip was postponed. I locked my phone and sat frozen at the counter. I wanted to think there was an explanation. Maybe a work thing had come up, maybe someone had gifted them the trip, but deep down, I knew, they hadn't postponed anything, they just hadn't included me. That night, I didn't call, I didn't comment on the post, I simply watched as more photos kept flooding in over the next few days. They went snorkeling, had bonfires on the beach, made memories I wasn't a part of. With each picture, something inside me snapped. This wasn't about just the trip, this was about all the times I'd been forgotten, the birthdays they ignored, the holidays where my gifts were last-minute afterthoughts, while Jake always got exactly what he wanted, all the sacrifices I'd made, but none ever returned. I clenched my teeth and took a steadying breath. They thought I'd just be too hurt to speak up, that I'd let it slide, but this time, I was done being invisible. They didn't know I'd seen the photos, so when they came back a week later, I had a plan. I heard the taxi pull up and watched from the window as my mom, dad, and Jake stepped out, dragging their luggage. They looked tired but happy, sunburned from their postponed vacation. I forced myself to stay calm. They didn't know I knew, at least, not yet. The door opened, and my mom was the first to spot me. "Alyssa," she said, her voice too bright, "Sweetheart, I missed you, how have you been?" I crossed my arms. "Busy," I said, flat and emotionless. Dad came in behind her, setting his bags down. "That's good, how's work?" I let out a bitter laugh. Work, that was all I had done, work, and scroll through their vacation photos while pretending I didn't exist. Jake stretched, yawning. "Man, I'm wiped out, traveling really takes it out of you." He smirked at me. "Hope you held things down while we were away." My eyes shot to him. "While you were away?" Like nothing had changed, like I hadn't spent the whole week stewing in their betrayal. I took a deep breath. No more pretending. I turned to my mom, my voice cold and steady. "So, how was the trip?" She blinked, hesitating. "Oh, just a little getaway, nothing too special." Liar. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and turned the screen toward them, the album filled with beach selfies, boat rides, fancy dinners, and the caption that twisted my stomach all over again, "Family time is priceless." I tilted my head, watching their reactions. "Does that look special to you?" A thick silence hung in the air. My mom let out a nervous laugh. "Alyssa, I don't." I cut her off, my voice sharp and cold. "Don't." My dad cleared his throat. "Sweetheart, it wasn't." "Stop." I raised my voice. "Just be honest with me, you didn't postpone the trip, you just didn't want me there." I saw the guilt flash across my mom's face, but she quickly covered it up with a weak excuse. "It wasn't like that, honey, we just thought." "What?" I snapped. "That I wouldn't notice? That I wouldn't see the photos? That I'd be dumb enough to believe your lie?" Jake groaned, rolling his eyes. "Oh my God, Alyssa, are you seriously making this a big deal? It was just a trip." Just a trip? The word stung, hitting me like a slap. The trip I had planned, I had saved for, The trip I was supposed to be part of. I shook my head in disbelief. You could have been honest with me. Instead, you lied. You made me feel like I wasn't worth bringing along. Jake scoffed. You're being dramatic. I let out a bitter laugh. No, Jake, I'm finally being real. My mom stepped forward, reaching for my hand. Alyssa, please. I yanked it away. No, not this time. They need to hear this. This isn't just about the trip. It's about every single time I've been treated like I don't matter. Every holiday where Jake got everything he wanted, and I got whatever was left over. Every time I sacrificed for you, and you didn't even notice. I swallowed hard, my voice shaking. I thought if I worked hard enough, gave enough, I'd finally be enough for you, but I never was I? The room fell silent. Finally, my mom sighed. Alyssa, it's not that we love Jake more than you. I gave a small, bitter smile. Maybe you don't, but it sure feels that way. Another heavy silence, and that was my answer. I nodded, exhaling sharply. Got it. Without another word, I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. Alyssa, where are you going? My dad called after me. I didn't look back. Somewhere I'm actually wanted. And I walked out. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. 4 days. My phone buzzed constantly with their messages, but I was done trying to fix things. This time, they could sort it out without me. I didn't answer their calls, I didn't reply to their texts, and for once, I wasn't rushing to make things right. It felt strange at first, ignoring them. Guilt crept in, like an old habit, whispering that I was overreacting, that I should just let it go. But then I remembered the text about the trip being postponed, the photos of them enjoying themselves without me, the lies they had told without a second thought, and suddenly, the silence felt like freedom. By the 5th day, their messages had changed. At first, they were firm, dismissive, trying to regain control of the situation. Mom, Alyssa, we need to talk about this. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. Dad, ignoring us won't change anything. Call your mother. Jake, Jesus. Alyssa, get over it. You're acting like a child. I rolled my eyes. Classic. They weren't sorry, they just wanted me to stop making them uncomfortable. But when I didn't respond, their tone shifted. Mom, sweetheart, please, we miss you. We never meant to hurt you. Dad, we should have handled things differently. Let's talk. And then the message that nearly made me waver. Mom, Alyssa, I feel awful. I can't sleep knowing you're upset with us. For a moment, I almost gave in. Almost. But then I asked myself, if I had never seen the photos, would they have ever told me the truth? Would they have ever felt guilty at all? The answer was painfully clear. So, I locked my phone and let the silence continue. It wasn't easy. I had spent years being the one to reach out, the one to smooth things over, the one who made excuses for them. Sitting with the silence, holding my boundary, felt unnatural at first, but as the days passed, I had an epiphany. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They were reaching out because they missed the role I played, being the fixer, the peacekeeper, the one who never caused a stir. Now that I refused to be that person, they didn't know how to handle it. A week after their return, I did something I'd never done before. I booked a weekend getaway for myself. Nothing extravagant, just a quiet cabin tucked away in the mountains, far from everything. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and left without telling anyone where I was going. For once, I wasn't asking for permission. I wasn't waiting for an invitation. I was just living for me, and it felt incredible. When I came back, my phone was flooded with missed calls and texts, but I didn't rush to respond. I wasn't ready. For the first time in my life, I was putting myself first, and I wanted to savor that feeling a little longer. They weren't used to me ignoring them, so when my silence lasted longer than they anticipated, they showed up at my door, and I was ready for them. I knew it was coming, the moment they'd stop calling, the moment they'd start showing up. My parents weren't the type to let things go. So, when the knock on my door came that Saturday afternoon, I wasn't shocked. I took a deep breath, setting my coffee down. My hands were steady, my heart wasn't racing. I was prepared. I opened the door to find my mom and dad standing on my porch. They didn't look angry or defensive. They didn't look demanding or smug. They looked nervous. Alyssa, my mom said softly, tucking her purse under her arm, can we come in? I leaned against the door frame. Depends, I replied evenly. Are you here to actually listen, or just to explain why I'm wrong for being upset? My dad sighed, a long exhale that felt like surrender. We're here to talk. really talk. I studied their faces. They weren't trying to demand access to my home. They weren't dismissing my feelings like they had in their texts. They were asking. That was something new. I stepped aside. Fine, I said. Come in. I led them to the living room. The air felt thick with all the things unsaid. My mom sat on the couch, hands folded neatly in her lap. My dad stayed standing, uncertain if he should sit. I sat across from them, arms crossed, waiting for one of them to speak. It was my mom who broke the silence. I don't know where to begin, she said quietly. The truth is a good place, I answered flatly. She flinched. My dad exhaled again, this time through his nose. We messed up, he said, looking at me, his voice steady but regretful. I blinked in surprise. I didn't expect him to say that. My mom looked down at her hands, her voice trembling. Alyssa, when we said the trip was postponed, that was a lie, no excuses, just the truth. I swallowed, my throat tight with emotion. Why? I asked, barely above a whisper. She hesitated, then said, we thought it would be easier. Easier? I clenched my jaw. Easier for who? There was silence. For you? I pressed. For Jake? A bitter laugh escaped me because, sure as hell, it hadn't been easier for me. My dad rubbed his face. We didn't think it would hurt you this much. I scoffed. You didn't think at all. My mom's voice cracked as she spoke. We thought you'd understand. Understand, the same word they had used in their messages, the word that felt empty. I leaned forward, meeting their eyes. Tell me the truth, if I hadn't seen those pictures, would you have ever told me? Neither of them spoke. That silence was my answer. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced my voice to stay steady. Do you have any idea what that felt like? Seeing you all having fun without me, knowing that I was never even considered? My mom's eyes filled with guilt. Alyssa, we love you. I shook my head. You don't treat people you love like that. My dad sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. We failed you, sweetheart. We should have been honest. I stared at him, then at my mom. Why are you really here? I asked. To apologize, or to make yourselves feel better? They hesitated, then my mom said, both. At least that was honest. We sat in silence for what felt like forever. Finally, my mom spoke again. I don't know how to fix this. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of all the years I'd been in second place. And then I realized something. I didn't need them to fix it. I just needed them to understand. It would never be the same. I don't know either, I admitted, but I do know this, I'm not going to be the one to fix it for you. My dad nodded slowly, a quiet understanding in his eyes. My mom wiped at her eyes, sniffling. What do we do now? She asked. I met her gaze. That's up to you. They thought an apology would be enough, but apologies don't undo years of being treated as an afterthought. This time, they had to prove they were ready to change. Apologies were easy, change, that was the hard part. After they left that day, I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel like anything had been fixed. They had apologized, but I'd heard apologies before. It was their actions that spoke volumes, and this time, I wasn't interested in words. I needed proof. For the first time ever, I didn't make the effort to reach out first. I didn't send them good morning texts. I didn't update them about my life. I didn't check in to see if they needed anything. This time, I made them do the work, and at first, nothing happened. Days turned into a week, then two, and I realized I had my answer. If I wasn't the one making an effort, there was no effort from them at all. I should have seen it coming, but still, it stung. It wasn't until the third week that anything changed. On an ordinary Tuesday, my mom called. I let it go to voicemail. Moments later, a text from her popped up. Mom, hey sweetheart, just thinking about you. Hope you're doing okay. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to keep the distance, but another part of me, the part that had been waiting for any sign that they truly cared, hesitated. I didn't respond right away. I waited. The next day, my dad texted too. Dad, miss you. Kid, let's grab dinner sometime. I stared at the message, emotions swirling inside me, not because I was ready to let them back in, but because, for the first time in a long while, they were trying. I agreed to dinner, but not because everything was forgiven, not because I was ready to pretend things hadn't happened. I agreed because I needed to see if they were truly serious. We met at a quiet restaurant, just the three of us. Jake wasn't there, and that told me they were paying attention. We sat down, and for the first time in years, my parents asked about me, Not about Jake, not about work, not about any favors I could do for them, just me. I wasn't sure if it was sincere or if they were just trying to fix what had broken, but for the first time, they were really listening, and that felt different. Halfway through dinner, my mom cleared her throat. "We've been thinking a lot about what you said," she began cautiously, "about how we've treated you." I took a sip of my water and stayed quiet. She continued. "And we've realized that we've always assumed you didn't need us the way Jake did, because you were strong and independent. We thought we didn't have to put in as much effort." She met my gaze, and swallowed. "And now we know that was wrong." I glanced at my dad. He nodded. "We see it now, Alyssa, we really do." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Those were the words I'd wanted to hear my entire life, and yet, part of me didn't fully believe them, not yet. By the end of dinner, something had shifted, not in a grand, everything's fixed kind of way, but in a maybe this time they really mean it sort of way. They still had a long road ahead, but for once, they were the ones taking the first steps, and for now, that was enough. But words were still just words. If they truly wanted to fix things, they would have to prove it. Dinner had gone better than I expected, but I wasn't naive. I knew that one meal, one conversation, wasn't enough to undo years of feeling overlooked. I wasn't looking for a quick fix or another hollow apology. If my parents genuinely wanted to change, they had to show it. The first real test came a week later. It was my birthday. If I knew anything from years of experience, it was that birthdays in our family were never fair. Jake's birthdays were always a big deal: parties, gifts, fancy restaurant reservations. Mine, a card, maybe a phone call if they remembered. So, I told myself I wouldn't expect anything this year. I told myself I wouldn't care, but deep down, there was still that small part of me, the part that hoped, that still wanted to believe they could change. And this time, they didn't forget. At exactly 10 a.m., there was a knock at my door. I frowned, setting my coffee down. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, I saw my mom and dad standing there, holding a cake. My breath caught. They had never done this before. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," my mom said, offering me a hesitant smile. I blinked, stunned. "You remembered?" My dad chuckled softly. "Of course we did." And for the first time, I believed them. They didn't just drop off the cake and leave, they actually spent the day with me. We didn't do anything extravagant, just a peaceful afternoon at my place, chatting, catching up, and enjoying cake that was a little too sweet, but perfect because it was mine. There were no rushed goodbyes, no sense that I was merely an obligation. For the first time in a long time, it felt like they genuinely wanted to be there. I hadn't realized how much I needed that until it actually happened. A few weeks later, they proved themselves again. I had a major presentation at work, something I had been anxious about for weeks. I'd mentioned it briefly over dinner, not thinking much of it, but on the day of the presentation, I received a text from my mom: "Mom, thinking of you today, you're going to do great." Then another from my dad: "Dad, let us know how it goes. Kiddo, proud of you no matter what." I stared at my phone for a long time. They'd never done this before. I wasn't used to them remembering the small details. Yet here they were, making an effort. It wasn't perfect. Mom still sometimes made excuses for Jake, and Dad still had trouble expressing himself beyond a few words. But the difference? They noticed when they fell back into old habits, and they worked to do better, and that made all the difference. A few months later, my mom called me, not for anything important, just to chat. At one point, she sighed and said, "I know it'll take time for you to trust us again." I swallowed hard. "Yeah," I said. After a pause, I added, "but we're not giving up. Alyssa, you're too important to us." My throat tightened because, for the first time, I believed her. For the first time in my life, I felt like I mattered. Change didn't happen overnight. There were still times when I caught myself bracing for disappointment, waiting for my parents to slip back into their old ways, to forget, to stop trying. But weeks passed, then months, and they kept showing up. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't effortless, but for the first time in my life, I felt seen. One evening, I sat on my back porch, sipping tea, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mom, not an apology, not a guilt trip, just a simple text: "Mom, thinking of you. How's your week going?" I stared at the screen, warmth spreading in my chest. That message wouldn't have happened a year ago. A few weeks later, I got another surprise. I had been saving up for a solo trip, something just for me. I hadn't told my family much about it because I didn't want to deal with their opinions, But one night at dinner, my dad asked, "So, when's your trip?" I blinked. "You remember?" He grinned. "Of course, it's Italy, right?" My mom nodded. "We were actually talking about it the other day. Do you need help with anything, packing, planning?" I studied them, waiting for the catch, but there wasn't one. They weren't offering to help because they wanted something in return. They were offering because they wanted to be part of my life, and that was new. The night before my flight, I got a text from Jake. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won out. "Jake, Mom won't say it, but she's freaking out about you traveling alone. You know how she is." I rolled my eyes. Typical. Then another message came through. "Jake, you're doing it, huh? Living life on your own terms?" I hesitated before replying. "Me, yeah, I am." There was a long pause before his final message. "Jake, that's kind of badass, sis." As I stepped off the plane in Rome, the weight of the past year hit me. I had spent so much of my life waiting for my parents to notice me, waiting for them to include me, waiting for the day when I wouldn't feel like an afterthought. But I wasn't waiting anymore, I was choosing myself. I had built a life where I didn't need their approval, and somehow, in doing that, they had finally learned how to show up for me. A few days into my trip, I sat at a cafe when my phone buzzed, a group message from my parents. "Mom, we just saw your latest photos. Rome looks amazing, call us soon, we miss you." I smiled, not because I needed their approval, but because for the first time, they weren't just saying the words, they meant them, and for the first time in my life, that was enough. You shouldn't have to beg for love, you shouldn't have to fight to be included, and if the people around you don't see your worth, choose yourself, because sometimes, when you stop waiting to be seen, that's when they finally notice. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video, stay stunned.